Hi everybody, it's Rose Parker, and today we're going to talk about Cotard Syndrome. So what is Cotard Syndrome? According to a case report of Cotard Syndrome by Ruminjo MD and Boris Mekinulov MD, it is a series of delusions that range from a belief that one has lost organs, blood, or body parts to insisting that one has lost one's soul or is dead. So Cotard syndrome is not very common, but it's a very disturbing delusion, and it's one that I struggled with a lot, especially when I was unmedicated and early into my treatment before I got with my current therapist, Miss B. So what symptoms of Cotard syndrome did I have? Well, a lot of them. I had the walking corpse syndrome for a long time. I had it in high school. I had that one for a really long time. I developed the delusion that I was a wandering ghost, a wandering spirit, and I had taken over my body and kicked out the real Rose, and that the voices that I heard were actually other spirits, and the real Rose was trying to get her body back, and I felt very paranoid and defensive about my position in my body, and I was scared that I was going to get kicked out of my body and back into the spirit world. And I think this might have had some origin in an earlier manifestation of the Cotard's delusion. In 7th grade, summer before 7th grade, I developed the delusion that I had lost my soul. I would have voices that I imagined as demons or the devil offering me contracts and saying they wanted my soul. And then I would imagine a locket in my chest cavity, a gold locket with either a little heart or crossed glass pane full of light, and I had imagining the light going out. And I would keep imagining that locket and seeing the light flash on and off and think I had lost my soul. And I would feel kind of empty and lightheaded in what I now know as dissociation. But I thought it meant I had lost my soul, and I was convinced I was going to hell. And it was incredibly distressing, and I didn't understand how to communicate my distress or paranoia to the adults around me. I tried asking my mother, is it possible to sell your soul? Is it possible to lose your soul? But she didn't really answer me. She just kind of dodged the question. So it didn't help my paranoia at all, because I didn't feel like I could trust her to give me a solid answer. And then I think this concept of my soul being able to leave my body and this sort of detachment from my body morphed into the delusion in high school of the wandering ghost. And I think this was edged on because of the severe dissociation I was experiencing. If you recall, I was dissociative in this form of dissociative identity disorder, and my alters would have been gaining their personalities and taking shape. And I did have dissociative episodes at this time where I would lose time and not remember what was going on, what had happened. I would just find myself places and not know what had happened. So it could kind of make sense that my brain would need a way to interpret this. And I had disordered eating off and on throughout my adolescence into my first enrollment of university. And I kind of think that's how I developed my later manifestations of Cotard syndrome, which were missing organs and walking corpse. I was also very sick. I was extremely chronically ill. I often had to spend full days on bed rest. I would go hungry sometimes during my first enrollment because I could not leave the dorm to get food. I had to keep food in the dorm, but sometimes I was too weak or too sick to eat it. And I did develop bulimia during my first enrollment, and it was very bad. I would not just purge after binges, I would often purge anything I ate. Sometimes I even purged just plain water because I didn't like how it made my stomach feel. And I would exercise compulsively at times. And I began developing a sense of having no organs. I was registered as an organ donor. I am registered as an organ donor. And I believed that I had died and my corpse was walking and my organs were gone because they had taken them because I was an organ donor. I don't know why I thought my brain was still there. I don't know. But it was very disturbing because I was confused. I didn't understand why I was still walking around. I didn't understand how I could eat but still not have organs. I had gastrointestinal problems, so when I would eat and my stomach would hurt, I took that as evidence that, oh, there's food going in there, there's no stomach for it to go to, that's why it's hurt. But I couldn't explain why I still felt the compulsion to eat. And the dissociation once again convinced me that I was dead. Oh, I can't feel my body. That must be because I'm dead. My nervous system isn't working correctly. And overall, these delusions served to create a very surreal environment for me to live in. They were very distracting. They created an added stress. I also had another thing. I had a bit of an obsession with blood, especially when I was like a teenager. I had an obsession of bruises. As a bit of self-harm, trigger warning. I would hope to get bruises when I banged into things. I was very clumsy, and sometimes I would try to get bruises. And I became convinced at a point that I had blood cancer, and I would try and give myself bruises to try and get big bruises like leukemia patients get, because I became convinced there was something wrong with my blood. And when I was in high school and I would self-harm, I would want to see blood in the wounds. And I became convinced that I became kind of obsessed with my blood. I would get fascinated when the blood would get drawn at the doctors. I would watch it very intently. I would like to see them stick the needle in. It was just a very bizarre fascination I have. A very bizarre fascination I had. I don't have it anymore. But I have to wonder if it was tied to this Cotard's thing, because Cotard's, according to the article I found, can have a delusion about blood. Excuse me, I need to take a sip of water. But I think Cotard's delusion, I think for me, it might have had to do with trauma. I think it had to do with a sense of not feeling at home in my body, of not feeling safe, of not feeling like I belonged in my body, of feeling like my body was something alien to me. I think for me, it had to do with feeling like a stranger. If I had to analyze it, I think this was one of those delusions that has meanings. Not all delusions have some sort of grand psychoanalytic meaning, but sometimes they do, I think. And I think this had to do with not feeling safe, not feeling like my body was really mine. I think it had to do with a feeling of violation and alienation. And I think it also reflected the suicidal ideation I had at the time. It's sort of a sublimation of that into delusion. but I don't know if that is common for Cotards or if that's just me. It's not something I've seen much research about. It's something I'd be curious to learn more. I want to see if when I go to grad school, I can find out if any of the professors know more, because it's something I actually find kind of fascinating, this particular type of delusion, because it's so different from the others. Anyway, I hope you all found this podcast interesting or helpful, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye.